Hey guys, tonight we slip into the muddy boots of someone who never asked for any of this. A cold wind cuts through your threadbare uniform as you blink away sleep. The morning mist already thick with the scent of wet earth and gunpowder. The trenches groan around you like a living thing. Wood creaks, metal rattles, men mumble and cough like it's their only form of protest left. And above it all, the silence of the ones who sent you here. You reach for your rifle, it's damp, again. Your fingers are already numb, and you've forgotten what warm feels like. You don't remember how long you've been out here. Time got swallowed the moment your boots sank into that first pit of mud. Letters from home are wrinkled and worn, like relics from another life. You read them like stories from a different planet. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge forward. The sergeant barked something at you earlier, but your ears barely caught it. Just another advance, another meaningless stretch of dirt. The guy next to you has a family photo tied around his neck like a talisman. You pretend you're not looking at it, but your eyes keep drifting back. He sees you, smiles. "We're just here to hold the line," he says. He might as well have said we're here to melt into history. A mortar shell hits somewhere far off, shaking the trench walls. Dirt trickles from above. You duck out of instinct, heart hammering. You always flinch, even though you're used to it. Everyone flinches, except maybe Jackson. He doesn't flinch anymore. Ever since that shell hit his squad last week, he hasn't spoken. Just stares at the horizon like he's already halfway gone. The mud sucks at your boots, and it's hard to tell whether the chill in your bones is from fear or frost. Probably both. You try to warm your hands by stuffing them into your armpits. Doesn't work. It never works. And what are you doing this for again? You remember the posters. Bold fonts, bold lies. Gloria waits. Defend your homeland. Be a man. The recruiter smiled wide. The crowd cheered. They promised you'd be home by Christmas. That was 3 Christmases ago. Now your gifts are rations, and your carols are the screams of the dying. Historians still argue whether this front was ever meant to win anything, or if it was just a stall tactic in a much bigger game. But you're not a game piece. You're a warm body with cold feet, and your job is to stay alive until someone tells you not to. There's a running joke among the troops. At least the rats get to eat. It's not really a joke though. The rats do eat. They've gotten fat off corpses, comfortable in their scavenger kingdom. You caught one chewing on someone's ear once. It looked up at you like you were interrupting dinner. And the officer's tent, somewhere back there, with warm coffee and dry boots. You haven't seen the captain in days. Maybe he's writing another report, tallying losses, inflating numbers, inventing victories. One time, you heard a private say, "If we win this war, I want the captain's coat." Everyone laughed. Then nobody did. Your breath fogs in front of you. The sky's a dull gray blanket, pressing everything down. You feel like the sun's forgotten about you. Like light has standards, and you no longer qualify. You light a cigarette with trembling hands, trying not to think about how this might be your last one. Smoke fills your lungs like borrowed warmth. For a moment, just a second, you pretend you're not in a war. You're just a guy, out for a cold morning walk. But then a distant scream yanks you back. Reality's got no patience for daydreams here, and you realize the war isn't really about you, is it? It never was. It's about the men in rooms with maps and cigars. It's about borders drawn with rulers, egos dressed in medals, and industries that sell bullets faster than they sell bread. You're the footnote. You're the foot soldier. You're the foot in the mud. You duck beneath a low beam of rotting wood as you shuffle forward, stepping over tangled wire and sludge. The guy ahead of you mutters something about his boots being eaten alive. You want to tell him it's not just the boots, it's all of you. The trench doesn't just swallow your body. It starts nibbling at your identity too. You used to be a baker, or a teacher, or a boy who could whistle entire tunes. Now you're the sound of squelching mud, the taste of metal in your mouth, the ache that never goes away. Every now and then, someone tries to give a rousing speech, some corporal trying to raise morale. You appreciate the effort, but it just sounds like background noise now. You nod. Maybe you even cheer. But deep down, you're already elsewhere. Your mind lives in a different season, far from this war. In a quiet town, where trains run on time and bread smells like comfort instead of survival. They told you that this would be a noble cause, that history would remember you, that your name would be spoken with pride. But as you watch Jenkins pour water out of his helmet for the third time today, you're starting to suspect that history's pen ran out of ink the moment you stepped onto the battlefield. There's this guy, O'Malley, always humming to himself. Old folk songs, sometimes hymns. You ask why he does it, and he just shrugs. If I die, I want the angels to know I'm on their team. Then he grins, that gap-toothed grin, like he's joking, but you both know he isn't. One morning you find a pocket watch in the mud, not yours, not anyone's now. It's broken, frozen at 3:17, probably the exact time its owner stopped being lucky. You wipe it clean and keep it, not for the time, for the memory, something to hold on to when the world's turned to gray paste. Historians still argue whether some of the most brutal trench battles were necessary, or simply the result of pride and poor communication. Some believe entire campaigns were waged just to distract public opinion back home. You're not sure which is worse, dying for a lie, or dying because someone was trying to protect a bigger one. There's a moment each night, just before sleep claws at your brain, when you remember your mother's hands, the way she used to smooth your hair when you were sick. It always smelled like flour and rosemary. You wish you could bottle that memory. Sell it here for cigarettes or dry socks. You'd make a fortune. Meanwhile, artillery booms in the distance. Not at you, not yet. But each thud is a reminder. A drumbeat of mortality. The earth shakes, and a rat scurries up your sleeve. You scream, curse, then laugh. Because what else are you supposed to do? The guy to your left has a diary. He scribbles in it at night, sometimes under fire. Says he's writing a book. About what you ask. About what it's like to disappear in slow motion. He says, deadpan. You laugh, but it sticks with you. Here's a strange one for you, trench foot. It's not just a condition, it's practically a mascot. Your toes start to numb, then blister, then rot. Like nature's way of saying, you weren't supposed to live here. Soldiers have tried everything. Whale oil, wool wraps, even stuffing their boots with straw. Doesn't matter, the mud wins. You know what's really funny? Not a single general has trench foot, not one. Must be magic. Or good boots. Every day blends into the last. You mark time by how many times Jenkins has to clean his rifle. Or how long it's been since someone lost it and screamed into the dirt. That happened yesterday. Or was it this morning? Doesn't matter. The dirt didn't scream back. And yet, you find strange beauty here. The way frost clings to barbed wire like lace. The sound of rain hitting a metal helmet like a lullaby. The sudden laughter when someone lets out a truly creative curse after stepping into an icy puddle. Small things. Tiny rebellions against despair. Historians still argue whether soldiers at the front ever fully understood the politics they fought for. But you don't need a manifesto to know fear. You don't need a headline to feel your heartbeat when a flare lights up the night sky. Tonight, the stars are out. For once, the smoke has cleared. You stare upward and realize you haven't looked at the stars in weeks. Maybe months. It's almost enough to make you believe in something again. Then someone starts coughing, the deep, rattling kind. Probably trench fever, maybe worse. You pull your coat tighter, press your back to the wall of the trench, and pretend the stars are close enough to touch. You wake to the sound of boots slapping through mud. It's still dark, which tells you nothing. Darkness is always here, lingering like smoke in your lungs. A whistle blows in the distance, sharp and shrill, slicing through the damp air like a bayonet. You sit up slowly. You know that sound. It means someone, somewhere, has to go over the top. You pray it isn't your turn. Not today. You're not ready to die in the morning fog. The guy next to you is already up, adjusting his pack. He doesn't say anything, just gives you a nod that says, if it's us, at least we'll be ghosts together. Funny thing, nobody ever really gets used to the idea of dying. Some pretend, some get loud and brave. But deep down, even the bravest heart skips a beat when the ladder comes into view. And yes, Historians still debate whether early morning assaults were tactically sound or just convenient for the generals, sipping tea far from the front lines. You don't know much about military theory, but you do know that fog doesn't stop bullets, and mud doesn't cushion body. Breakfast today is a cold biscuit and something pretending to be coffee. You try not to think about what it actually is. The guy across from you makes a joke about missing his mom's porridge. You laugh because the only other option is crying. Crying takes energy, and you need every scrap you've got. You remember a letter from home once that talked about victory gardens and the importance of staying cheerful. You wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, but because somewhere, someone thought you had time to garden. There's always that one guy who carries a lucky charm, a coin, a lock of hair, a rabbit's foot, which, let's face it, didn't work out so well for the rabbit. You've got a pencil stub tucked into your sleeve. Not lucky, just familiar. Like a relic from the life you used to have. The commanding officer walks by. His uniform is cleaner than yours. His boots somehow dry. You wonder if rank comes with a magic spell to repel filth. He doesn't make eye contact. You prefer it that way. You're too tired to salute. Someone lights a cigarette, and for a moment, the orange glow seems almost sacred. You pass it around like communion, a sacrament of soot and nicotine. Your thoughts drift to one of the strangest tales you've heard out here, the Christmas truce. Supposedly, back in 1914, soldiers on both sides put down their weapons and sang carols. Some even played football in no man's land. It's a romantic notion, but you wonder if it really happened the way the stories say. Historians argue about it. Of course, some call it propaganda. Others swear by eyewitness letters. Either way, no one's kicking a football today. Today, you're on watch duty. You peer through a slit in the sandbags, eyes scanning the gray horizon. There's nothing out there, and everything. Movement, or just the wind playing tricks. You've seen it happen, men, firing at shadows until they run out of bullets, then realizing the only thing they killed was their nerves. O'Malley returns with a trench rumor. Apparently the enemy has started using trained dogs to deliver messages. I hope they're better fed than we are, someone mutters. You chuckle. It's easier than wondering what the dogs think of all this. Later you find yourself staring at your hands. They don't look like your hands anymore. The skin is cracked, the nails blackened. They belong to someone else. Someone older, someone who's seen things. You wonder if they'll ever be clean again. There's a kid in your unit 16, maybe, lied about his age to enlist. He keeps a picture of his dog in his helmet. You told him once to keep it in a pocket, somewhere safe. He said no. If I get hit, I want the dog to see it coming too. You weren't sure whether to laugh or cry. And then, there's the poetry. Yeah, really. Some guy back in the rear line writes poems, posts them on a wooden board near the latrines. One was about the mud, another about a boot that walked off without its owner. No one knows who he is. You call him the Trench Bard. His rhymes are terrible. You love them. It starts to rain again. Of course it does. You huddle under your coat, counting the drops that sneak past your collar. You've stopped hoping to stay dry. Now, the goal is to be less wet than Jenkins. There's a lull in the shelling. You breathe a little easier, but you know it won't last. Quiet is dangerous. It makes you hope, and hope is flammable out here. Someone sneezes, and you all flinch. Not from fear of disease, though, that's real enough, but from the absurdity of fearing something so normal in a place this abnormal. The day stretches on, slow as treacle and twice as sticky. Eventually, you fall asleep sitting up, your rifle in your lap, your dreams borrowed from a better decade. And somewhere in the mud, that broken pocket watch in your coat ticks once. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just imagines the sound, like you do. You wake with a start, and it's already night again. You think hard to tell. The sky hasn't had a proper color in weeks. Just variations of gray and the occasional flicker of artillery flashes, like a cruel imitation of lightning. Your back is stiff from sleeping against the trench wall, and your left foot is numb. Probably the start of trench foot again. You wiggle your toes just to feel something, anything. The new rations arrive during your nap. Spoiled tins and moldy bread. You chew slowly, telling yourself it's a gourmet experience, the kind you'd pay 12 francs for in Paris. Everyone chuckles, but nobody spits the food out. Hunger's a better seasoning than salt. Tonight, you're on latrine duty, which somehow feels like a promotion from dodging bullets. The air is thick with rot, the kind that clings to your clothes and follows you for hours, like a ghost with bad manners. You wonder if historians will ever bother to talk about this part of the war, the smells. The slow shuffle through human waste, the arguments about which end of the trench is the good one. Probably not. Doesn't look heroic on the recruiting posters. You make small talk with the other guys while you scoop and dig. Jenkins starts ranting about the real reasons for the war. His theories are wild. Secret banker cabals, royal family feuds, cursed artifacts. It's ridiculous, and maybe not. Historians still argue whether the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was really just the spark or a carefully laid match dropped on a powder keg centuries old. You nod politely and pretend you're interested, but really, you're just trying not to gag. A rat scurries past your boot, fat and fearless. You've given up chasing them. They own this place now. One soldier swears he saw a rat wearing a helmet once. You're not sure if it's a joke or a symptom. You sit beside a pile of sandbags, waiting for the next round of instructions, and you stare at your reflection in a puddle. The face looking back is not your own, it's older, hungrier, sharper. Your cheekbones jut out like warnings. Your eyes have sunk into your skull. Somewhere behind them, the soft boy who once laughed at knock-knock jokes is curled up and quiet. Someone tells a story something out of place here. A medieval siege, maybe, or a battle where two sides agreed to pause every Sunday for tea. It sounds made up, but you let yourself believe it anyway. Because if men once found a way to fight with honor, maybe there's hope you'll find your way out of this trench alive. There's a new recruit tonight. He's fresh-faced, eyes too wide, helmet too big. He's trying to light a cigarette with trembling fingers. You help him. The first drag calms him, and for a moment, you're not strangers, just two tired souls trying to survive another night. He asks what the worst part of it all is. You want to say it's the cold, or the lice, or the constant fear, but instead you say, the silence. Because when the guns stop, and the screams fade, and the world holds its breath, that's when your thoughts come back. Loud and angry, asking why you're here, who sent you, what they've traded you for. You think about the guys back home. Some of them protested the war, said it was a rich man's game played with poor men's pieces. They were called cowards, traitors. Maybe they were right. Maybe you're the pawn in someone else's checkmate. But you're here now, so the point is academic. And speaking of academics, there's this strange story you heard once about a professor who sent care packages to the front, filled with Shakespeare and Greek philosophy. One soldier reportedly used Play-Doh to patch a hole in the trench wall. You like that? Wisdom holding up mud. Seems poetic, in a way. Night deepens and you think you hear music. Not real music, of course. Just the whine of wind through broken boards. The soft plop of dripping rain. The distant boom of artillery softened by miles of ruin. But your mind fills in the melody, a lullaby in a language no one speaks anymore. The guy next to you starts snoring loudly. Someone throws a pebble at him. He snorts awake, glares, then curls up again like a hedgehog in uniform. You take out that pencil stub again. No paper, just a scrap of cardboard from a ration box. You write something, maybe a letter, maybe a poem, maybe just a list of things you miss. Clean socks, wind that doesn't reek, the way home smells after it rains, hot soup, a smile that isn't hiding something. There's a moment, just a moment, when you close your eyes and remember how quiet the world used to be. Before the orders, before the marches, before someone in a faraway room circled a country on a map and decided you would die for it. And yet, even now, a part of you refuses to break. Maybe it's the part that still hums a tune when the shelling starts. Or the part that still believes in spring. Because deep in the mess of war, there's this stubborn ember inside, you one that whispers, you're still here, you're still here. Though your uniform is crusted in places, you stop checking, and your boots are more mud than leather. You shuffle forward because the day demands it. Orders come down like prophecy. Today, you're on supply run escort, which sounds important until you realize it. Just means walking behind a mule cart and praying the thing doesn't die before you reach the next checkpoint. You trudge, as always. The mud slurps at your heels with every step, like it wants to keep you here forever. The sky is that same lifeless gray, and your breath clouds in the cold. It's hard to tell if the heaviness in your chest is from the weight of your gear, or just knowing where you're going. A line of broken trees watches you like skeletons holding sentry. The guy leading the cart whistles a tunesome marching song from back home. You hum along half-heartedly. It's comforting in the way stale bread is comforting. At least it's familiar. You pass a crater the size of a house. Inside it, a tank lies like a gutted beetle. Burnt out, forgotten. Someone's painted flowers on the side in chalk. You pause just long enough to notice before someone yells at you to keep moving. The cart hits a bump and spills part of its load crates of boots, mostly left-footed. Typical, you mutter. The boots are brand new, untouched by mud or blood. You hold one up and imagine the poor guy who lost the right one. Somewhere there's a soldier limping in circles, cursing supply command and the gods. You pick up a boot anyway and tuck it into your satchel. Not for yourself, years are too far gone, but maybe for trading later, or for burning, or just to hold on to something that hasn't failed yet. A village comes into view, or what's left of it. Shell-pocked walls. A church steeple leaning like it's drunk. You remember hearing that villagers used to gather in the square every Sunday. Bells ringing, kids chasing dogs. Now the only thing chasing you is the wind. In what used to be the apothecary, you find a stash of letters, piled in a rusted drawer, never delivered, some are months old. You read one addressed to my dearest Paul. It's short, written in looping cursive, and talks about a plum tree in bloom, the smell of sweet bread, the price of eggs. You fold it carefully and place it in your pocket. Paul never got it. Maybe he never will. But now you have. As the unit sets up camp in the skeleton of a barn, you're told to rest. You lie down on a pile of straw that smells of wet stone and mouse droppings. It's the best bed you've had in weeks. Your eyes flutter shut. But sleep doesn't come easy anymore. It's filled with flashes, screams that aren't yours. Faces half remembered. You hear your mother's voice, then your commanding officer, then nothing but your heartbeat ticking like a nervous clock. You're not sure how long you're out before someone's shaking you awake. "We need you on perimeter," they whisper. Of course, always awake, always waiting. You grab your rifle and trudge to your post. The fog is thick now, thick enough to chew. It swallows sound. Every tree looks like a man, and every shadow is suspect. You stand very still. The night plays tricks, and you're not in the mood to lose. Suddenly, movement. You aim. A shape stumbles forward, young, bleeding, not from your unit. He's holding his stomach like he's trying to keep it in. You lower your weapon and rush forward. Catch him before he falls. His eyes are wide and wet. He whispers something in a language you almost recognize. Maybe he's French, or Belgian. Maybe he's just scared. You yell for help, but the fog eats your voice. You do what you can, press your hands to the wound, whisper comforts you don't believe. You hum that marching song again, softer this time, like a lullaby. He dies anyway. Later, you dig a shallow grave and mark it with a fork tied to a stick. No name, no ceremony, just a moment of silence. You say something kind, or maybe you just think it. Either way, you hope it's enough. You stare into the fog a little longer, wondering if anyone else is out there watching, listening. You hope not. You hope tonight is quiet. You return to camp, and someone's brewed, fake, coffee-burnt chicory root, probably. Tastes like ash and regret. You drink it anyway. Someone tells a joke. It's not funny, but everyone laughs. Too hard, like it's the last time they might get to. As you sit with your hands cupped around the steaming mug, you start to wonder if the people in charge ever really cared. The generals, the ministers, the ones who sent you here. You think of that famous photo of young soldiers smiling as they boarded trains. How hopeful they looked, like tourists in uniform. Historians still debate whether those smiles were real, genuine patriotism, or just well-placed propaganda. You think it's both. Fear and pride are twin brothers. After all, you lean back against the broken barn wall and watch your breath curl into the night. You try to remember what peace sounded like. A bird's wings, wind and tall grass. Laughter that isn't hiding pain. And just as you start to doze off again, the whisper comes back, unbidden. You're still here. Your shift ends before sunrise. Though the darkness feels no different, you're relieved by someone who looks even more hollowed out than you. You give them a nod, not bothering with words. You both know they won't help. Back in the barn, you curl back into your straw pile. The warmth from earlier has vanished. The air smells like mildew and yesterday's fire. You pull your coat tighter, bury your nose in the collar, and drift off again, this time dreaming of trains. Not war trains, but ones that run on time, filled with passengers who don't carry rifles and fear in their chests. You wake to shouting, distant at first, then close. It's not an attack, just another argument over rations. Someone took extra bread. Someone else hasn't eaten in 2 days. The officer tries to calm things down, but you can hear his voice cracking under the weight. Leadership doesn't mean much when everyone's starving. You take a chunk of your own bread hard as brickhand, hand it to the guy nearest you. He doesn't thank you, just eats. You don't need thanks, you just need this day to be over. Mid-morning orders arrive. Your unit is moving again. New front line, new mud, new blood. You don't ask why. You stopped asking a long time ago. As you pack up, you find the letter to Paul again. The ink is smudged now, but the words are still there. You reread the part about the plum tree. You try to imagine the scent of the blossoms, the soft hum of bees, the way the light must filter through the leaves. You try, but the war has dulled your senses. Beauty feels like a myth. The march begins. Your boots squish. Someone sings the marching tune again, but now it sounds more like a dirge. The landscape shifts, slightly more shell holes, fewer trees. You pass a horse carcass, mostly bone. A helmet rests on its ribcage like a crown. Someone left it there on purpose. A joke, a warning, hard to say. You reach a crossroads. The signpost has been blown to bits, so the officers argue over which way to go, east or south. East might have better ground, but the enemy's closer. South is safer allegedly, but slower. Eventually, the choice is made for you. The path is clear in one direction. Muddy footprints and wagon tracks etched deep into the earth. You follow them. The sun tries to break through the clouds but gives up halfway. The light is weak, apologetic. You squint and keep moving. During a rest stop, you meet a boy not more than 15, carrying a rifle almost as tall as he is. His uniform is too big, his boots mismatched. He grins at you, all teeth. First war, he says like it's a holiday. You nod, not unkindly. He talks about wanting to be a hero, about medals and parades. You don't have the heart to tell him most heroes never make it home. Instead, you offer him your last piece of chocolate. He devours it like it's gold. Historians still argue whether conscripting underage soldiers was an act of desperation or pure negligence. You don't care what they call it, you just know the kid shouldn't be here. That evening, you dig trenches again. The soil is heavy with rain. You shovel beside a man who whistles through his teeth the entire time. You hate it at first, then you find yourself humming along. It's something to do. Something to anchor your thoughts while you move dirt for a war you didn't start. You hear an explosion in the distance still, far off. Probably artillery, or someone stepping where they shouldn't. No one reacts. No one flinches. You just keep digging. Night falls. Your uniform is soaked again. Your socks squelch. You've stopped caring about blisters. They're just part of the deal now, like lice. Like nightmares. You settle into the trench, back against the wall, rifle across your lap. Someone has lit a stub of candle. The flame flickers, casting long shadows on the mud. You stare at it like it holds answers. It doesn't, of course, but it's warm. It dances. It lives. You write in a notebook you stole weeks ago. Just a sentence or two. Nothing fancy. Saw a fox today. Rain smells like copper. Miss the sound of coins in my pocket. You don't even know why you write. No one's going to read it. Maybe that's the point. A rat scurries past your boot. You nod at it. A familiar presence. You've started naming them. That one's Bernard. He's a regular. Someone passes around a flask. It tastes like paint thinner, but it burns nicely. You sip, cough, smile. A small rebellion against the cold. And then, from the other end of the trench, someone starts to sing. Not a marching tune this time, but a lullaby, soft, slurred. You don't recognize the language, but the melody is haunting. It seeps into your bones. You let it. The boy from earlier is curled up nearby, eyes closed, hands clutching his helmet like a teddy bear. You wonder what he's dreaming about, parades or plum trees. You hope it's plum trees. Dawn creeps in like it's ashamed of itself. Gray and pale and barely noticeable. The kind of morning that makes everything look like it's been washed out. Like someone scrubbed the color from the world overnight. You sit up slowly, your spine crackling like old parchment. The trench floor is a swamp again. Your blanket soaked through. You gave up on dry anything 3 weeks ago. You squint upward, no birds, just fog and the sour smell of standing water and gunpowder memory. You take a few bites of the standard issue. Something could be oatcake, could be plastered and chew, until your jaw starts to ache. You're halfway through when a runner arrives, panting and wild-eyed orders. He says, like that explains anything. New location again. The boy is still asleep. You nudge him gently, then a bit harder. He wakes with a start, fumbling for his weapon, mumbling about parades and medals. You say nothing, just hand him a crust of bread. He eats like he hasn't in days. He probably hasn't. You move out before the sun really gets going. Marching is quiet, no singing this time. The mud sucks at your boots like it's trying to keep you. Maybe it knows something you don't. At one point, someone trips over something buried. It's a helmet with a skull still inside. No one reacts. It's just another reminder of how the ground's been keeping score long before you arrived. A mile later, you reach a small village, or what's left of it. 3 walls, half a roof, and a well with questionable depth. The officers decide it's enough for a base. You drop your gear and sit on what used to be a door frame. There's a splinter in your thigh, but it's almost comforting. At least it's pain you can understand. The boy finds a flower, something yellow, sprouting defiantly near the well. He picks it and tucks it behind his ear. You don't laugh, you think it's brave. The kind of stupid bravery only someone new can afford. While you unpack, a civilian wanders out of the woods. An old woman with a shawl and a basket. She speaks in the local dialect, soft and cracked. The officers try to question her, but she only offers one thing. A jar of preserved cherries, homemade, labeled with a date from 3 years ago, before the war, she says, like it's a different calendar entirely. You take one. It's sweet and sticky and tastes like memory. That afternoon, you dig latrines while others fortify what's left of the barn. You wonder if it used to house cows or dreams, maybe both. The walls are marked with initials and dates, graffiti from past tenants, both military and not. One name repeats, Luca Muinovicenza Zidozzi. You trace it with your finger. He's probably long gone now, but his scratches remain. Proof he was here. That someone was. You take first watch that night. The moon shows up late, small and distant. You pass the time counting stars, though you're never sure if you're seeing real ones, or just shell-shocked ghosts. In your head, you go through your old routine: feed the hens, clean the tools, wipe the sweat from your brow with your mother's hands on rack. You can almost feel it coarse and familiar. But when you open your eyes, it's just your sleeve, frayed and caked with grime. Somewhere in the barn, the boy is humming. Same lullaby as before. You let it carry you. Historians still argue whether the widespread shell shock during early campaigns was simply psychological or a mix of neurological trauma and environmental stress. You don't argue, you just live it. There's a distant thud far enough not to worry, close enough to remind you. Everyone pauses, listens, resumes. That's the rhythm now. Freeze, breathe, carry on. You do a head count before sleep. The numbers don't add up. Someone's missing. The officers pretend it's a mistake. You know better. The mud eats people like that without drama. Just gone. You lie down on a bed of hay that used to smell sweet. Now it smells like rust and rain. You close your eyes, replaying the image of that yellow flower behind the boy's ear. You wonder what he'll look like in a month. If he'll still have ears. Vin Blin, your dream, you're back at the orchard. This time, no soldiers, no shouting, just wind. You're holding a basket filled with plums and promises. The boy is there too, wearing his helmet like a crown, dancing between the trees. He laughs and it echoes, loud and fearless. You try to join him, but your legs don't move. The ground clings to you. The mud remembers. NMC Sihun. You wake up to silence and a sky bleeding orange. It's morning again, but you're not sure what that means anymore. Days are just pauses between disasters. And yet somehow you sit up, stretch, and start another one. You're relocated again, not because of strategy or a change in tides, but because the barn finally collapses in on itself. No one is hurt unless you count the chicken that someone had been secretly feeding and pretending wasn't there. Its name had been Gloria, the boy cried. You march west this time, past charred trees and stone fences that now only fence and ghosts. There's a moment, as you cross a shallow creek, when the cold water hits your ankles and you remember something. Washing your feet in a stream as a child, your mother yelling not to fall in. You smile briefly, then the weight of your pack reminds you who and where you are again. The new camp is a trench system that makes the last one look like a spa resort. It's narrow, stinks of diesel and rot, and it's already flooded up to your calves. You keep your mouth shut. Complaining is for people with options. You're handed a spade and told to reinforce the western wall. You dig beside a man who doesn't talk, just hums. Every few minutes he stops, mutters something about salt, then keeps digging. Later someone tells you he used to be a salt miner. Now he just digs because it's what his hands remember. A courier brings a stack of letters. You get one. It's from a cousin you barely know. It says, "We heard you're doing your part. Thank you." You stare at it for a long time. There's no return address. Later that night, a philosopher soldier, you're not joking. He taught at a university before being drafted starts. A debate over dinner about the ethics of war. You nod along, you mostly agree. Until someone else says, "Yeah, but if we don't fight, we lose everything." And that shuts it down. Historians still argue whether the average foot soldier truly believed in the nationalist causes they fought for, or if most simply followed orders because saying no wasn't on the menu. You think about this as you clean your weapon and stare at your reflection in the dull metal. A rat runs across your hand. You don't flinch. You haven't flinched in weeks. The boy writes a letter home. You peek over his shoulder and see he's drawn a picture. Instead, a treehouse, a swing, and what looks like a dog wearing a crown. You don't ask, you just pat his shoulder. Someone near the front trench plays a harmonica. The tune is messy but warm. A few soldiers hum along. One even dares a whistle. Then, flares. The sky turns white, then red, then white again. You freeze. You breathe. You carry on. Shells fall closer than they should. One lands near the latrines. The impact sprays mud and worse over everything. A man screams. Not from injury, but frustration. He'd just gotten dry socks. You and the boy are told to hold position. You do. Your knuckles go white around your rifle. He whispers a prayer. You think about a sandwich. Eventually, the shelling stops. No one moves for a while. Silence has weight now. It's suspicious. When the orders come, advance. You check your boots, tighten your helmet, and follow. The mud clutches at your steps like it's begging you to stay. You find yourself in a crater field. It's like the moon had a tantrum. Everywhere. Holes? Everywhere. Smoke? The man in front of you vanishes. Not from gunfire, but because the ground gives out beneath him. You look over the edge. He's alive. Somehow. In a shell hole. Smiling like a lunatic. "It's warm down here," he says. "Smells like toast." You move on. You reach the hill. You're not sure why it's important, but apparently it is. You crouch behind a burnt cart, watching. The boy is beside you, clutching a grenade like it's an egg. And then, ... Quiet. No bullets, no shells. Just wind. For 15 whole minutes. It's worse than the fighting. You whisper, "If you make it through this, I'll buy you a horse." He laughs. "I want a dragon." You nod. "Sure. A dragon with a saddle and a nameplate." The order comes. You move. You're not fast, but you're deliberate. You make it 10 steps before you hear the whistle. Not from a shell, no. This is a human whistle. High-pitched musical. From the other trench. You drop. Everyone does. A single figure walks into view. No weapon, just a coat and a flag. It's not white, but it's close. He's yelling something. It takes a while before you realize it's your language. "Parley," he says. We talk. Historians still argue whether this kind of thing happened more often than records admit moments of shared humanity between enemies who were equally exhausted. You think it probably did, because right now, everyone's just waiting a ceasefire, just for tonight. You lower your rifle. You live. The night feels heavier than any day you've lived through. Darkness settles like a thick blanket, muffling sounds, but somehow making everything more vivid. The smell of wet earth, the faint whistle of wind through broken trees, the low hum of distant voices. Your trench mates settle into uneasy sleep, clutching weapons as if they were lifelines to a different world. You find a quiet spot near the back, pull out your thin blanket, and try to rest. But your mind races with memories: the boy's dragon, the man smiling in the crater, the whistle from the enemy trench. Sleep teases you, then slips away. You remember a story you once heard, during a war centuries ago. Soldiers passed time by telling tales of heroes and monsters, each story more exaggerated than the last, until they forgot where reality ended and fantasy began. You try to recreate that feeling, whispering a story to yourself about a knight who fought a dragon that breathed nothing but smoke and sorrow. Somewhere behind you, a soldier coughs a dry, hacking sound that echoes through the trench. You glance over. It's the philosopher, still awake, staring into the blackness like it holds answers. You wonder what he's thinking. Maybe he's debating the morality of peace, or perhaps he's just trying to count the stars behind the clouds. Your thoughts drift to the village you left behind, the fields you plowed, the warm bread you never got to eat again, the laughter of your mother, the stubborn goat that always escaped the pen. Historians still argue whether soldiers longed for home more than victory. You think they probably longed for home the most. Suddenly, a faint noise breaks your thoughts: a soft tapping on wood. You turn to see the boy, carefully shaping sticks and leaves into tiny shadow puppets. His face glows faintly in the dim light as he brings the creatures to life against the trench wall. For a moment, the war feels miles away. The puppets dance, telling stories without words of faraway forests, brave adventurers, and magical beasts. You smile despite the ache in your chest. The night deepens. Somewhere, a clock chimes faintly in your mind, counting down moments to a dawn that promises nothing but more waiting. You close your eyes, letting the stories carry you somewhere quieter, gentler. Outside, the world still burns. But here, for now, you find a fragile peace. Dawn creeps slowly over the horizon, painting the sky with pale pinks and blues. But it offers little comfort. You sit up, muscles aching, skin cold despite the meager warmth from your threadbare cloak. The world awakens with a grim determination. Birds call cautiously, and somewhere, a dog barks in the distance. A sharp reminder of the life continuing beyond these trenches. The bell rings somewhere far off, a mournful clang that marks another day of fighting. Another day spent by the orders of kings and lords who never see this bloodied ground. You grab your bucket, the one you had carried since before the war began, now chipped and stained, but still yours. It holds water for you and the others, a small comfort in a place where comfort is scarce. As you stand, your mind drifts to the stories you told yourself last night: the shadow puppets, the knight and his dragon, the village you left behind. The philosopher is already awake too, scribbling notes in his battered journal, mumbling about justice and power, always searching for answers that feel just out of reach. You shuffle through the mud toward the latrine, bucket in hand, thinking about how wars twist reality, how the weak are sent forward to fight battles they don't understand, while the powerful stay safe behind walls and speeches. You recall reading somewhere that peasants, the very backbone of medieval armies, often fought not for glory but survival, for debts owed or because they had no choice. Historians still argue whether any war is ever truly just. Your bucket sloshes with water, cold and real, as you think of the people back home. How many waited for letters that never came? How many faces blurred in the smoke of burning villages? You recall reading somewhere that peasants, the very backbone of medieval armies, often fought not for glory but survival, for debts owed or because they had no choice. Historians still argue whether any war is ever truly just. Your bucket sloshes with water, cold and real, as you think of the people back home. How many waited for letters that never came? How many faces blurred in the smoke of burning villages? The afternoon drags on, heavy and slow, like the thick mud clinging to your boots. Your body aches from constant strain holding weapons, carrying buckets, dodging arrows, and the despair that drips from every shattered tree and broken wall. You catch snippets of conversation from the men around you, some speaking of home, others silent, lost in their own private battles. You wipe sweat from your brow and glance toward the watchtower where the bellkeeper stands, a lonely figure against the sky. His job seems simple, ringing a bell to mark time, but you know better. Time is a cruel master here, each toll a reminder of days lost and lives wasted. Some nights you hear rumors that the bellkeeper writes stories, tales of secrets and mysteries hidden within the village and beyond. In such a bleak place, stories are a rare treasure. Your thoughts shift to the higher-ups, the lords and commanders who plot strategies in distant halls. You wonder if they ever think of the peasants sent to die for causes they don't understand. Historians still argue whether the peasants fought willingly or were coerced by promises of land or freedom that rarely came. A stray pigeon flutters overhead, a strange sight in this hellscape, and you remember the bellkeeper noting oddities like these during his long, lonely nights. You envy his quiet moments, even if they come wrapped in solitude. Suddenly a shout breaks your reverie, a call for reinforcements, or perhaps another push forward into the chaos. You tighten your grip on your bucket and steel your nerves. The war grinds on, indifferent to your fatigue or fears. You trudge forward, one step after another, caught in a story much larger than yourself, a story written in blood, sweat, and silent prayers. The night falls like a heavy cloak, swallowing the battlefield in darkness. You can barely make out the shapes of fallen comrades and shattered weapons strewn across the mud. The distant tolling of the bell echoes through the silence, steady and unyielding, a heartbeat keeping time for a village that barely sleeps. The bellkeeper's lonely vigil continues, marking moments that no one else remembers or cares to count. You find a moment to rest, leaning against a rough-hewn tree stump, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on your shoulders. Your thoughts drift to the strange contrast of your world, the brutal clash of steel and the quiet, eerie calm of the bell's chime. It's in these moments, between the chaos and the quiet, that the mind starts to wander, imagining stories that might never be told. Historians still argue whether the bellkeeper's role was purely practical or if it held deeper symbolic meaning, a guardian of time, memory, or even sanity in a world torn apart. Some say the bell's toll was a warning, others that it was a comfort. For you tonight, it feels like both. You remember tales whispered by the old folk about how some bellkeepers would weave stories to pass the time. Stories filled with mystery and intrigue, helping them stay sane in the loneliness of the tower. Maybe that's why the bellkeeper you know writes his detective story. The tolling truth, finding hidden truths in the shadows. As your eyes grow heavy, the flicker of distant campfires and the faint murmur of voices become a lullaby. You feel the day's weight start to lift, replaced by a strange peace found only in surrendering to sleep. Tomorrow will bring more battles, more hardship, but for now, the night holds you in its gentle embrace. You wake before dawn, if you can call this half-sleeping day's waking. The air is wet and sharp, the kind of cold that slides into your clothes and settles in your bones. In the bell tower, the old bellman sips something steaming from a crude mug, maybe broth, maybe something stronger. He mutters to himself, adjusting a small list pinned to the wall. You catch glimpses of his scribbles, odd notes about the smell of moss, the timing of owl calls, something about strange silence before the third bell. This is his rhythm, not yours. You're still caught between the soldier's chaos and the bellkeeper's meticulous solitude. But today you realize something strange. His notes aren't nonsense. They're clues, patterns, observations. One mentions how the pigeons didn't return to the tower yesterday. Another highlights a sour scent in the air before a village fire. Is it superstition? Or just attention to things others ignore? Historians still argue whether medieval observers like the spellkeepers, scribes, wandering monks were proto-scientists, or simply oddballs with too much time and ink. The line between data and delusion is thin, especially when sleep is scarce and the nights stretch endlessly. But your brain is buzzing now. You ask him, carefully, why he watches the sky so much. He shrugs, then says, because sometimes it watches back. That might be a joke, or a warning, or both. He offers you a seat, a piece of stale bread, and a dip into a strange detective story. In this chapter, the bell detects guilt, its vibration subtly changing when someone in the village lies. You smile, it's absurd, but you read on anyway, soothed by the quiet flick of pages and the crackle of the brazier. Out here, truth is hard to find. Stories are steadier. You stay longer than expected. Days blend together, nights even more so. The bell tolls, meals are shared, and you begin jotting your own notes. At first, it's just to pass the time. But soon, you're comparing observations with the bellman, tracking the frequency of distant howls, the shift of shadows across the tower wall, even how many footsteps echo from below when no one's supposed to be awake. He appreciates your curiosity. Says most folks only notice the world when it burns or breaks. The quiet moments, they're where the real things hide. One night, you climb to the very top of the tower. It's windy, dangerously so. The old iron bell looms over you like a sleeping beast. You place your hand on its side. Cold, solid still. But when it rings, it vibrates straight through your ribs. That's not just noise, it's a ritual, a declaration. The hour is passing, you're still here. From up here, the village looks like a toy set. Tiny cottages, crooked fences, faint lantern glow. You remember marching through places like this too fast to look closely, but now you see how delicate it all is. Every night the bell keeps time, not for power, but for people. Mothers nursing infants, elders drifting into dreams, drunkards stumbling home. All of them rely on that soft echo in the dark. A fringe theory floats through your mind. 1. The bellman told you with a smirk. The bell doesn't just measure time, it anchors it. Historians scoff, of course, but late at night, with no one around to argue, that idea hums in your chest like a low tone of truth. Downstairs, the bellman waits with a blanket and a question. Ever think about staying? And you? Don't quite say no. You begin waking up before the bell. Not out of anxiety, but something gentler habit, perhaps. You've started noticing how the air smells different between 2 and 3 a.m., or how certain wooden steps creak louder depending on the humidity. In this new rhythm, you're no longer just a guest. You're part of the tower's breath. The bellman gives you a key. It's ceremonial, more than practical, but he insists. You'll need this for when I'm gone, he jokes. Though you can't tell if he's referring to the market, retirement, or mortality. You don't ask, ... Nights grow colder. You layer your robe with one of his old cloaks. Your handwriting in the shared log grows tidier, more reflective. You add symbols, arrows, little sketches of owl tracks and chimney smoke patterns. You're still unsure whether it's data or poetry, but no one's grading you. One night you hear weeping. It's faint, almost imagined. But there it is again beneath the east window, the one overlooking the cemetery. The bellman doesn't flinch. That's just Maud. She does that sometimes. You're frozen. A ghost. No, he chuckles. Just a woman. Buried her husband. Likes to cry alone. The bell comforts her. You add it to your log. 3:11 a.m. distant weeping. Window fogged. Bell not yet rung. Then you draw the shape of the moon. You wonder if it watched her too. Historians still argue whether personal records like these qualify as legitimate sources. But what is legitimacy, if not the echo of a life lived honestly? The bellman begins to nap more during his shifts. His hands shake when lighting candles. One night he asks you to ring the bell. You hesitate, then you pull the rope. The sound ripples through the night, warm and clear. And for the first time, it belongs to you. The rope falls from your hand in slow motion. The sound of the bell fades into memory. A low hum settling into the space between thoughts. Outside the window, dawn peeks in the softest suggestion of light, brushing across ancient stone. You sit, no need to speak. The tower exhales its quiet approval, as if it's always known you would end up here. Your hands are warm, your breath steady. The bell doesn't ring again tonight. It doesn't have to. In the village below, shutters rattle, a dog stirs, a lamp is lit. The world continues, gently rocked by time and toll. You're no longer just watching, you are part of the rhythm, woven into its measured heartbeats. The fire in the corner of your mind burns lower now, soothed by hours of quiet story, slow memories, and tender mysteries. Names drift by like leaves on water. Maud, the bellman, the footman with the painted mouth. Each one touched the thread of your night, gently tugging you deeper into stillness. The tower stands firm. You rest your head back, the wood behind you cool and reassuring. The air smells like wax, paper, and old rope. You close your eyes, and somewhere beneath your ribs, a soft chime lingers. Sleep comes not as a drop, but as a tide rising slow, washing over every thought, every corner of wakefulness. You are safe. You are still. The bell has been rung. You may sleep now.